Hello everybody, welcome back to another Polytopia 1v1 review. This game was played with me as Yaddak. I actually quite often play as Yaddak in 1v1s. It's just none of the games are usually very good for reviews, because they're usually pretty short. I railroads my opponent into oblivion before they can really do anything. So, this game was different than that. So I feel like this one is worth showing. And this is between me playing Yaddak in the south and my opponent playing Imperius in the east. So I started with a road opening. This is a disputed opening for Yaddak. A lot of players say it's good. A lot of players say it's bad. I think it's good, so I use it. And I went towards resource indicators in front of village. They upgraded, like normal. Moved on to the village. Came over here. They get writing, which... It's always good to not buy a tech if you can't use it. So they're buying of writing here. While they could have used it, they were going to use it next turn, they could have just bought it next turn instead, in case they needed the stars for something else. But they invested in writing beforehand and left themselves with no stars. See? Now I meet them and get organization, which allows me to level up here. They meet Yaddak and get 5 stars. And so there... Now, that right here would have been an ideal time to buy writing. Because then they would have had these 9 stars plus the 5 stars they used last turn. So they would have had 14 stars, which they could have used to buy, like, farming instead. But they're locked on writing now. So. I do not step onto the village. Because I know that if they found me early enough, they definitely would have enough units within range to kick me off. Which it turns out they do here. So, it was a good choice, but the problem is I don't have any units in range that can hit them and kick them off this village. So that village is going to go to them, which is unfortunate for me. So they get hunting there. Also, buying a tech they can't use that same turn. And they get forestry. So they get this lighthouse. Interestingly enough, they went for the lighthouse instead of the village. I mean, it makes sense because it allowed them to level up their capital for stars. I still would have stepped onto the village and delayed the capital for another turn. And they get this other lighthouse as well. I capture, level up for another workshop. So, because I start with roads, I don't need to buy roads, and I just get city connections, level up for stars, level up again for stars here. And I'm just training a lot of riders. They get an explorer, and it gives them good vision of this entire area, but it doesn't give them the lighthouse. So, I can siege here by placing a road, but I know it probably won't hold. I get this lighthouse, and then I level up the city with a connection and a fruit. Step onto this ruin, and I hope it gives me something good. And just like I thought, they were able to unsiege. So I get stars from that. I go, huh. Stars. What do you do with the Yaddak as stars? You go Chivalry. That's what you do. Knights are very powerful late game units, and if you can get them in the early game, you can dominate. So, they get a veteran swordsman from this ruin, and by mathematics recap. So, I'm continuing to just chip away at their front line using rider roads. I get another ruin here that I can see. They get vision on this city, and they're sending a rider out to here to get these cities. They take border growth here, which prevents me from using this road. And if they get spiritualism, that allows them to grow forests. They just grow forests here, and my riders and thus by extension, knights cannot do anything to the city. So that would have been frustrating. I don't think they knew about that or had the stars to afford getting archery and spiritualism needlessly. So it's an interesting play that you can make. I buy Chivalry pre-cap, even though it means I can only train a single rider. But they level up here for a giant. I see that, and I'm going, okay, I've got enough riders, which just as de facto is something you never want to have to say, because going, oh, I have enough riders, means you're going to sacrifice a bunch of riders. Like, just like this, I'm going to sacrifice so many riders to get the giant down to half health. So, they make a mistake here. They heal it instead of moving it backwards to heal, leaving it still vulnerable to all of my riders. And then my knight, which I do unfortunately make the mistake of chaining through the giant. I did figure they could unsiege anyways, and I did siege anyways, but I would have had a greater chance of the siege holding if I'd done with the knight. But it didn't matter anyways, because they had enough units to unsiege. And they get a veteran here, which is annoying. They level up their capital for a giant. And then they use 2 monuments to get another giant here. They don't have vision of the city over here, which is the city I'm using to produce knights, so they don't know whether or not I have another knight. I would guess that they think I have another knight, but that they're not certain. They get fishing, because they have a lot of fish here. They get an explorer here, and it goes forwards and then goes backwards. So it doesn't give them a ton of useful vision. It doesn't give them this lighthouse like I think they'd hoped it would. So I move forward, find this village over here. I'm positioning a bunch of knights, training a few more knights. They get climbing. I think only so they can step onto this mountain. And I'm a little confused as to why they went climbing here. I think it was so they could give this giant a defense bonus. But this giant is causing problems, so I'm hitting it a bunch. And then killing it. Just like that. It's so fun. One turning a giant is awesome. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Should definitely try it sometime. So they're not left with enough stars here at the end of this turn to level up the city, because they bought a catapult and bought roads. So I see that this catapult, and so I hit it. Always good value. So what I'm doing, ever since they parked this giant on this mountain, right here, I've been leaving this city open. I know they can siege it anytime, but they also know that I have enough firepower that I can take out the giant in one turn if they siege. So they're just not sieging. So here, after I unsiege, I hit the catapult. I train more knights, step onto this village. They move on to this ruin, and then they retreat their catapult and get city connections, and yet another giant in here. A level 7 city. It's absurdly high. I level up this city for stars after getting fishing, so I can also get a giant here. My first giant, it's turn 18. I level up this city, take an explorer, and this explorer, it did a good job. So it got me useful vision and the lighthouse. They get farming from this ruin. That's like really lucky, because that's just a free giant right here. And here now. But yeah. They decide to use forestry to get the giant, which is probably a better idea. they finally sieged a city with 2 giants here. So the other giant comes and they're like, okay, now I can siege because I can siege twice in a row, and they can't possibly have enough firepower to unsiege then. Yeah. I think they underestimated the power of knights, because I think it takes 5 knights to kill a giant. So they're leveling up the city for stars. Then all they need is a single population here. So I don't know why they used some of their stars for other units here instead of getting a giant. They got a rider here going, oh, well, we should probably stop them from doing this. I noticed something here regarding up here. I can take this village, confirm it, and take this city. I have enough vision to do so. So, what I do? Simple. I move on to the village, kill the rider. I don't step off the village because I don't have climbing. Build 2 roads. Move my knight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles. And then kill their rider. So I decide enough is enough, and I decide to kill this giant. Because it's just annoying and in the way. Using all my knights, I managed to take it out. And then I sieged the city with a bounce. The only reason I did this, I knew they could unsiege. I did that so it would deny them stars. They went from making 27 stars to making 16. This city is generating so many stars that this and this denied them so much income that it denied 11 stars that turn. So that was insane. So they finally get that giant there. And they have another giant here with these farms. So they move their vet sword in to block. Yeah, I siege again. And I've got 5 knights in range of their capital. No, I've only got 2 knights in range of their capital. But the other ones can hit any units that are here. Any unit in this city. I capture this city, level it up, and then I capture this city. They unsiege with the catapult, and they get trade. Trade, yeah, it's a good plan long game, but personally what I would have gone with is, because I had knights, for them, I probably would have gone with strategy for defenders, or I would have tried to counter knight them with chivalry. Another interesting thing they could have got here is construction, because they've got some good farms here. But, yeah. And once again here, they demonstrate buying a tech that you can't use in the same turn and why it's a bad idea. And now it's time for another episode of killing a giant in a single turn. But first things first, I gotta siege this other city. I don't know whether or not they can unsiege. I hope they can't, but think they can. They probably have enough firepower over here. So, here, I'm slaughtering the giant. And then I kill. Siege their capital. Unfortunately, step off their capital. That was a mistake. Shouldn't have done that. I should have stayed on there to deny them stars. And sieged this city. Now, if they had a knight of their own, they could have chained through all of this. But I knew that they didn't have knights, because I hadn't seen one yet. Didn't mean they didn't have them, but this play here was a risk that I was willing to take. And none of these riders are in range to stop the siege. These ones are, but they're blocked by all these other knights. And so they resign. So, thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And maybe check out some of my other content. I will see you in the next one.